Capcom's long-awaited remake of their landmark hit Resident Evil 4 has been out for a little bit now, and it seems to have made the title, though 18 years old, maybe more popular than ever. While a rock-solid rendition of Resident Evil 4, I'd argue that Resident Evil 4 2023 was just unable to rekindle the same magic in a few respects of the original game, and that in a lot of ways it really captures my anxieties for game remakes in general in ways I'd love to discuss. So let's do so right now. Resident Evil 4 2023 is a polished rework of a game whose original influence and creative brilliance could probably never be replicated. It isn't that Resident Evil 4 2005 was a flawless work, that games haven't improved or developed since then. And it's not like the original doesn't benefit in certain respects from this overhaul. It's that the objectives of an original title and a remake are, in my view, polar opposites. A new game typically seeks to break new ground. A remake tries to preserve something old across eras in technology and evolving design trends. These are facing in opposite directions, which is partly why in Resident Evil 4 we have such clashing objectives. On the one hand, to recapture the old Resident Evil 4 magic, on the other, to let us play RE4 like we've never played it before. As if to announce or preordain the remake's primacy, this rework has been simply titled Resident Evil 4, as if to say that this is the definitive edition of the game. But there's the problem. The definitive edition is, by that definition, the one that defines a work as an influence, the one that people will think of when they think of its name. But when the original Resident Evil 4 debuted in 2005, it altered the course of the medium in numerous ways. The remake itself is proof of the original game's continued importance. Would anyone bother to remake this remake? Of course not. They would just remake the original yet again. The idea of a remake's typical basic objective, to redefine our idea of the old in terms of the new, well, when it's a game like Resident Evil 4 made during the height of the 3D era, it's a little difficult if not impossible to envision really working out, with it matching the same level of influence or importance. But my problems with Resident Evil 4 2023 go beyond simply failing to impact the medium to the same extent as its predecessor. Maybe games as a medium have grown so big today that we lack as much of a canon of sacred cows that everyone's playing and drawing influence from. But that has its perks, that sort of environment, least of all being the diversity of titles created by so many different sets of influences. In tandem with the law of diminishing returns, design trends are proving now less and less seismic in terms of their long-term staying power or influence. So maybe that would be impossible for a modern Resident Evil 4 to really match. But less than leaving an impact as lasting as the originals, QuickTime events, or over-the-shoulder third-person shooting, I found Resident Evil 4 2023, while often fun, stylistically muddled and underwhelming in terms of what it adds to the original. I'd say the finished product makes the Resident Evil series look monotonous in ways that disservices the original games.
What the hell is going on?
I don't know. Hopefully they'll have some answers at the police station.
Wait, you're a cop?
Yeah, Leon Kennedy. You are?
Claire. Claire Redfield.
Live around here?
No. I'm looking for my brother. He's a cop too.
Well, it's a good thing we found each other. I don't know what to expect anymore.
So tell me, Yankee, why did you come to this horrible place? As close to nowhere that I've ever seen.
Let's just say, looking for someone.
I didn't feel the devs embraced the original game's heightened scale and newfound love of adventure storytelling, courtesy of its biggest influence, 2004's Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, in enough substantive ways. The graphics are certainly much nicer, but only in terms of becoming more lifelike and moody. From a stylistic perspective, Resident Evil 4 2023 misguidedly tries to ease the transition into 4 from 2 by sort of blending together the source material tonally, so that Resident Evil 4 winds up with some of Resident Evil 2's overly serious cop drama brand edgy darkness, an addition to its visuals that obscures what should, at least in my view, be a more colorful, exotic, and adventurous experience. I felt the remake sands down certain sequences while leaving in others somewhat arbitrarily, as though it really isn't certain which design relics from the original are safe to include and which ones have lost their fun. By trying to give the game a modern one-to-one sense of verisimilitude, there are more detailed interiors, but less of them in number, or at least that's what it feels like. It feels like the game's castle and countryside villages have slightly shrunk in some ways. Maybe the less detailed, less realistically proportioned original left more room for a sense of winding, almost subterranean scale. Maybe my standards and suspension of disbelief are just more forgiving for a game created in the contextual era of the GameCube and PS2. But I was let down to see Capcom take out certain time capsule features that helped place the original in a particular milieu. I miss, for example, the MGS2 reference with the biometric eye, and all the explicit nods the original game makes to Nintendo games, being as it was the first non-remake to be featured on a Nintendo console. Now there are no Zelda dungeons full of fire anymore, no general sense of playfulness that the Nintendo console seemed to bring Resident Evil as a series, and this long Hall of Mirrors-esque puzzle has been refashioned and compressed down into the size of a single room. Resident Evil Village looks comparatively much more clever and fun and creative than it really deserves to next to this version of Resident Evil 4, and this version really could have used some of Village's masterfully line-straddling tone. But when a project's too big to risk ever failing, the room for creativity or ingenuity evaporates. Don't take my word for it, just ask Hideo Kojima. Don't get me wrong, Resident Evil 4 2023 wasn't a bad game. The new engine and modern controls pair well with the flank and surround you happy hordes and bullet spongy bosses. And the best thing about this remake for me was the dynamic between Leon and Ashley. Some of the overhauled mechanics here felt like they really added to the original game, as the remake cuts back on elements that can make Ashley's parts feel like old-fashioned escort missions, and utilizes not story, but gameplay in a cutting-edge, fresh way to really make you want to keep these two safe and together. I love how, for example, they'll dynamically check in with each other after big fights, how Ashley will worry for Leon in combat situations, or occasionally flirt as the pair flit about the castle. I also love the expressiveness of Resident Evil 4's facial rigging, which let me really see Ashley's admiration for Leon, not to mention her quality jiggle physics. In all seriousness, Resident Evil 4's remake was always going to be a good time, but I question its hodgepodgery of styles and tones, its sometimes comparatively uninspired take on this classic game, its ho-hum side quests, and its occasionally paint-by-numbers feel that plays too conservative maybe with the old material without adding enough substance to patch the gaps. All in all, it's a fun weekend or two of memory laning, and I'll be coming back to check out the hardest difficulty setting to be sure. But I wonder, now that Nintendo's Tears of the Kingdom is upon us, if this Resident Evil 4 will even be on people's minds a month, 2 months, half a year on. If not, oh well, there's always next remake. And hey, we'll always have the original in its already myriad different forms. So play it if you haven't already like 4 times over, okay? Until next time, boss.